weekly editions for the Patriots Playbook, of course, throughout the course of the summer and into training camp as we get a little bit closer to that come July, and then we'll start the weekly editions of the program once we get the regular season ready to roll after Labor Day. But we're glad that we can check in with you from time to time, and this was really a good time to do this because literally 5 minutes ago, the second organized team activity, otherwise known as OTA, otherwise known as picnic time, practice just wrapped up, the ones that the media are allowed to see. And so we're going to go over that in just a little bit with Evan Lazar from right here, Patriots.com, and, of course, the Catch-22 pod, because Evan is out there listening to the players speak as we speak, and so he's going to join us here in studio in a bit. Russell Baxter, our good friend during the regular season, will also join us on issues and stories and potential stories from around the NFL at this stage of the season, this stage of the year, if you will, a little bit later in hour number 2. But this is really a time to kind of catch up, to sort of get I think, a viewpoint of where we stand. And I know that there are many of you that probably feel a lot like I do at this stage of the game. Like, where are we? It just dawned on me earlier today that, you've got younger players that are coming in. This team is trying to go through, a bit of a metamorphosis with, newer bodies, fresher bodies, younger players. And yet they, did a pretty good job of signing, a lot of the veterans that they wanted to bring back, which is certainly, I think, a way to build. And I do want to talk about that building process that Elliot Wolf has proclaimed he would like to undertake in today's show as well. But I got to thinking, if you've got young coaches and you've got, a young staff and you got a lot of guys who don't have a lot of experience or savvy, you got a few. You brought in a few. I mean, Alex Van Pelt certainly comes to mind here. But you got guys who are, it's their first year in this organization. It's their first year in Foxborough, at Gillette Stadium. It's their first year as part of the new Patriot way, or whatever it is we want to call it. And they've got to coach the younger players. And so you're having young coaches coach young players, and I don't really know what to make of that right now. Is that does anybody else share that feeling with me? I don't want to panic. I'm not going to panic. There's kind of silly to panic. This is football we're talking about. But at the same time, I think for many of us who have been around for a number of years, expectations are always going to be somewhat elevated. I mean, let's face it, when you go 4-13, you don't want to do that again. It led to the ultimate dismissal of the greatest coach of all time. I don't know that that's even an inarguable point right now, no matter what you thought of, Bill's GM capabilities, Eldred. I don't think, that we can argue that. So something significant had to happen, right? Something significant had to happen in the, last year for that to take place. And I think 4-13 would probably fit the bill. And so now you go through the draft. And I'm going to recap, again, that a little bit. I'm not going to go over who was drafted and such, but we played a little game, our last show, which was the day before NFL Draft Day 1 month ago. And we'll see how close we got to actually pegging the first 11 picks of the draft, which is we did a mock draft with beat writers and broadcasters from the teams that were in the top 11 in the draft if you didn't join us last month. And so we'll kind of score it along and see how we did here. But at any rate, and I'll get to that in just a moment, but I guess the reason I'm talking about this is because, look, even though we're through the draft, Drake Maye has already signed a contract. He signed it yesterday. So there are only just a literal handful of first-round draft picks that have not signed their rookie deals yet. So, he's a Patriot. He's ready to roll. The Patriots are getting their business done here. But this is all part of the normal course of events, for, the end of May. And there are going to be a little bit, there's going to be, some other schedules that they'll follow. You've got today, tomorrow, and Friday to wrap up OTAs. This is the one day that the media had an opportunity to visit to them. We'll get a recap on that in just a little bit and some thoughts on that. I was able to take in the last part of practice today before joining you here on the program, so we'll give you some thoughts in just a minute. But you've got OTA practices for the rest of this week, of which we won't be privy to. And then you've got 2 more OTA practices next week, June 3rd and 4th. Then you've also got a day off, and then you've got, again, OTA practices on June 6th and 7th. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 6 more practices over the course of the next 8 days. And so maybe by the end of that, you'll know a little something. Minicamp, the mandatory minicamp, I should say, is set for June 11th through the 13th. That's a... what is that? Monday, June 11th through 13th. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of that week. That's the week that we have the Tom Brady celebration here, which I'll be happy to. It's 10, 11, 12, right? Okay. So what? Now wait a second. Oh, the mini camp is 10, 11, 12, Matt. You gonna give me? Okay. I don't want to get the date wrong. It doesn't matter because, regular training camp, they haven't officially even set the dates for that yet, have they? I don't believe they have for the end of July, but we know it's going to happen right toward the end of July. We're just not sure the exact start date, the exact report date yet. 10th through the 12th. Okay, good. So the mandatory minicamp, 10, 11, 12, culminating with Tom Brady's induction into the Patriots Hall of Fame on the 12th, which will be here at the stadium, and I'm sure it'll be a sellout crowd or close to it. And by the time we do our next show here on the Playbook, which will be at the end of June, we'll officially be entering the quiet period, the deadest period of the dead periods in the National Football League over the course of a calendar year. That will be beginning next time we do the show. So we'll have a chance to basically look back at the beginning to the Gerard Mayo era, through the draft, through the OTAs, through the mandatory minicamp, through the Brady celebration, that kind of thing, and take stock of where we are. But the question I actually have for you today, and I hope that you'll take some time to pick up the phone or send me a note. webradio@patriots.com. That's the email address, of course, webradio@patriots.com. You can find me on X. What's my X address? Oh, yeah, @JRBroadcaster. I'm going to get confused again because I finally figured to call it X rather than Twitter. Right? See, I did that this time, and then I forgot what my handle was. @JRBroadcaster on
2
X.
years?
Yeah, it's the senility setting in, Sorry. At least I'm honest about it, right? Some people don't want to come to grips with advanced age. I fully embrace it. I want to smack it in the mouth every day when I get up and I hear my bones crack when I get out of bed. I'm going to smack it right in the mouth every time.
That's some motivation right there.
Yeah, right? I'm like, I'm not taking this sitting down. I'm not going to take it sitting down. So @JR Broadcaster, that on IG too. I am on IG if anybody is interested. So you notice how I did that in the social media parlance. Instagram is IG. I am not, sorry to say, I'm not on TikTok.
You got to spell things with Z's on TikTok.
Yeah, right. I know. You do. Should I tell that story that I told you before? Okay.
It's a good story.
Yeah, many of you know that, and you've been most gracious with many of your comments. Many of you know that I also write a weekly column for the Providence Journal. Every Sunday it appears in the actual newspaper, but we put it out socially over Friday and Saturday leading up to the Sunday print edition of the Providence Journal. And it's a column that I did for, 10, 11 years on weei.com and Go Local Prov before that. So I started this column back in 2011. So I've been doing it for 13, almost 14 years now. But I've been doing it for the Journal for the last year. They've been kind enough to bring me on and hire me to do this. And so I got an email from a reader. I'll just say she's from Rhode Island. I'm not going to say from where. But she's from Rhode Island. And she chewed me out because one of the little things that I do in my column, for those of you that know, is I have a little colloquialism in the column just to sort of be neighborly, just to sort of be friendly, just to kind of make it like it's a conversation between you and me off the cuff, right? Like we're sitting at a bar over a beer and we're just shooting the bleep, right? That's all we're doing here. That's what this column is supposed to be. And so every once in a while, I'll throw in something slang-ish. And the one thing that I do with some regularity is the word says, S-A-Y-S, right? I spell S-E-Z. Now, I figure that's really comfortable, right? I mean, everybody knows what that is. I know it's not spelled right. I know that, it's not proper King's English or anything like that. I know all of that. But she kind of read me the riot act. And she goes, I can't believe that a publication as austere as the Providence Journal would allow you to spell a word like that. Something as simple as says. And I tried to explain to her a little bit that exactly as I just told you. I said, well, it's, to try to be friendly and chummy and, everything like that. And then, I basically said, wait a second. What? They spell says, S-E-Z on TikTok? Who gave them permission to do that? That's my says. I said, so I guess lawyers are going to have to talk to my lawyers. And then I asked her, I said, you know any good lawyers? In the state of Rhode Island, everybody knows a lawyer. If they don't have one in their family, right? Everybody knows a lawyer. So, copyright infringement here, right?
My apologize.
Yeah, my apologize. So, I don't know. It's just supposed to be something for fun. Unfortunately, it sort of didn't really resonate on her that, it was that way. So.
No shortage of Karens in Rhode Island.
Nah, I don't even think she would really be in a Karen. She was just, I think she really, because I'm a journalist and have been for a long time, she mistook my attempt, if you will, at being colloquial for, poor grammar. That's all.
Picture it as a teacher slapping your knuckles.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. I felt like, I didn't go to Catholic school, but I had friends of mine who went to Catholic school who used to get rapped over the knuckles with a ruler by the nuns. Yeah, when they were misbehaving. Whack! That never happened to me, but I had a lot of stories told to me like that. And I actually saw, kids. See, in my school, I went to public school. My school is a little bit different. If you misbehaved in class, you got a pink slip. Pink slip wasn't a pass out of class. It was a pass into the vice principal's office where you had to bend over and he would give you what we would call a lick. Not orally. Okay. Don't look at me like that, Matt. For God's sake, don't do that to me, all right? He would bust you on the butt with a paddle. Don't do that anymore either. If you do that now, you're going to get your butt sued off.
You'll be Adrian Peterson.
Yeah. Oh, God, right? Yeah, you can't even. Yeah, I remember when I was a little kid, my mom used to get a switch after me, too, when I'd misbehaved. Now, I don't think she ever made contact, but damn, I wasn't about to find out what it was like. So I'd be running through the backyard and like, Mom, okay, I'm sorry. Nothing, right? And so I think that's what my mom used it for, is just to threaten me. But not in junior high school, not in middle school. Nope. If you had to go to vice principal's office, you got one of those terrible pink slips. You had to go in and he'd take a look at the pink slip. He goes, "What'd you do?" Oh, I made a wisecrack or something, or I called somebody a name, or I made a girl cry or something, right? Okay. He's like, all right, bend over. Whack! Kind of like, the scene in the movie Animal House. Were you going to play that? Did you find it?
I'm literally looking for that drop, though.
Okay, find it. Kevin Bacon. Okay, the 6 degree. We're going to play the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon here. But Kevin Bacon, who of course played, the pledge, the Omega pledge, who was getting, initiated by the Omegas, and he was told by Douglas C. Niedermeyer to assume the position, right? And all of a sudden, whack! Thank you, sir. May I have another? Whack! Thank you, sir. May I have another? Okay. That's kind of how it was in middle school. When we wouldn't get racked over the knuckles with a ruler by the nun. It was the big burly vice principal who had his paddle. in his hand. That's how punishment was meted out. How many years ago was this? 50? Yeah, about 50 years ago. God, we were barbaric, weren't we? Barbaric. Still can't find it, Matt? Have they totally screwed with your system? They brought you a new audio board and everything else in advance of the brand new studios that we're going to build in here in Gillette Stadium, and you can't find a drop.
I dropped machines from 1980.
I get it. I get it. Well, feel free to just throw it in whenever you find it. That's perfectly fine. Because I've already digressed enough here. We've digressed from Tom Brady's celebration to whack across the rear end for, misbehaving. So anyway, that's what we kind of got going on. I would love to hear from you guys today. Web radio at patriots.com, at JR Broadcaster on X, on Instagram, John.Rook on Facebook, and, of course, the telephone number. You can do it the old-fashioned way and pick up the phone. The phone lines are open. 855-PATS-500. Toll free, 855-PATS-500. I'd like to know what your major concern is today. What's your big concern today? Not what it's going to be. Not what it was. What's your major concern today? I'll tell you what mine was coming up in just a couple of minutes. All right. That's known as a broadcast tease in the business. I do want to get to, a little business at hand, though, from last month's program. But to begin with, Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots, Toyota. Let's go places. All right, so where we went last month, day before the draft, we did a mock NFL first-round draft for the top 11 picks in the NFL draft. And we had writers from all over the country, a couple of broadcasters as well, covering the teams, and they made the selections for the team that they covered. Mock draft that, radio hosts have probably done for the last 30 or 40 years anyway. I think I first did my mock draft on live radio, would have been probably back in the 80s. So close to 40 years ago when we first started this tradition. At any rate, the top picks, the top 11 that we selected in the Patriots Playbook mock draft for the 2024 NFL Draft. Caleb Williams, ding, ding, ding. Jaden Daniels from LSU, ding, ding, ding. Drake Maye, North Carolina, ding, ding, ding. So we got 1, 2, and 3 nailed right there. Chicago, Washington, New England. First 3 were perfect. Thank you. Number 4, we selected Marvin Harrison, wide receiver, out of Ohio State. And Marvin Harrison was indeed selected by the Arizona Cardinals, number 4. He also just signed his contract, as did Drake Maye. Williams and Daniels have not yet signed their contracts, if you're looking for the update on that. Maye, of course, as we know, signed yesterday, Tuesday, 28th of May, if you're listening to this on the playback of the podcast. Maye, 4 years, $36.6 million, and a $23.5 million signing bonus. Marvin Harrison, 4 years, $35.3 million, according to the slot and the formula there, and he got a $22.5 million signing bonus. And of course, he's also ending up with some apparent legal discomfort as well through the Fanatics team shop website. They think that he is reneging on a deal. He's trying to renegotiate a deal, and I don't know how that's going to turn out. But geez, you haven't even played a down in the NFL, and you've already got legal troubles. Dude, really? Maybe the Patriots knew something we didn't know about Marvin Harrison. I don't know. Have another. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, sir. May I have another? That's it. That was the only one you could find. You didn't get the whack part of it in there? Oh, okay. You have to trust me when I say Kevin Bacon bent over and he got belted. If you never saw the movie, Google it, you'll find it. Okay. All right, so pick number 5 in the mock draft. We actually had to take the pick was actually held by the Chargers, and that was a trade with Minnesota, and they actually took the offensive lineman from Alabama, J.C. Latham. It ended up, of course, becoming Joe Alt. The Chargers ended up taking Joe Alt from Notre Dame with that one. And then number 6, the Giants, we had them slotted in, taking Malik Neighbors. And guess what? Malik Neighbors went number 6 to the Giants. Number 7, the Titans took J.C. Latham. We had the Titans taking Rome Odunze out of Washington. Number 8, Michael Penix went to the Atlanta Falcons. And then we, in our draft, had Joe Alt from Notre Dame going there. Number 9, the Bears. We had them taking Olu Fashanu. And number 9 actually was Rome Odunze, the wide receiver. Number 10, the Jets. We had them selecting Brock Bowers from Georgia, and they ended up they ended up being a trade with the Minnesota Vikings, and the Vikings at 10 took J.J. McCarthy. And then finally, number 11, where the Vikings ended up selecting, and then, of course, it ended up being, in our mock draft, they took Penix there, and then in reality, it was the New York Jets who selected Olu Fashanu. So the only thing I'm really kind of getting at here is that every one of the 11 players that we selected in the Patriots Playbook mock draft, Evan Lazar, every one of those 11 players was selected in the top 11 of our draft.
So we got
in reality, you need to press a little red button. There you go.
it's a little sticky.
How long has he
Thanks,
been doing
Deuce.
this? Right. I know.
What's Deuce doing over here?
I know. I'm not sure what he's doing.
Unbelievable. But we
did. We
nailed it more or less.
We nailed them.
Yeah.
We nailed all
I'll
the
take
players.
it.
All the players are in there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, this was a great job by our guest pickers.
Yes.
It was a kind of a predictable draft because of all the offensive talent. You know, we talked about it, not to get into the draft. I know we have bigger things to talk about today, but that was one of the most unique drafts I've ever covered in terms of how offense heavy the first round was. The top 10.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever see that again, where was it like 9 offensive players in the first 10 picks or whatever it ended up being.
No. And I think that just kind of underscores the need by the teams who weren't very good last year to pick it up on offense.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's really kind of where we are. I mean, I don't think that's really a concern. I think all things in life and in the NFL are cyclical. And, even in the day of, spread offenses, 5 wide, shotgun, whatever it may be, run and shoot, even back into the 80s in the old USFL, right? The old Mouse Davis offenses, which I was a huge fan of back in the day. And hell, I was a wishbone quarterback, so what the hell do I know? But this has been an evolution, a slow evolution in the sport that, where defense used to win championships. Defense wins championships, and the mindset has changed. We're going to end up going back anyway. And so now teams are starting to figure other teams out, as we know, up and down the league on offense. They're slowing people down because of their ability to spread the field with basically more athletic, faster, quicker defenders. This has been a problem for the Patriots. And then last year, we saw some glimpses of the Patriots getting younger, quicker, faster. And then, of course, they lost their 2 best players to injury last year.
Yeah.
So it's a trend that we've seen sort of matriculate over the last, 5 to 7 years maybe. And it probably still has a way to go before we end up spinning back the other way. But I kind of thought it was interesting, like, okay, teams must feel like they're in pretty good shape defensively, otherwise they wouldn't have gone so heavy on offense.
Yeah, we're cyclical is the right word, and it's fun because I think a lot of offensive teams now are starting to go back the other way a little bit of getting heavier, getting more run heavy, especially early downs, to mitigate the fact that there's a lot of defenses now that have 220-pound linebackers. Well, if you're going to play with 220-pound linebackers to adapt to spread and the different things that they do, and some of those offenses, well, we're going to just run it down your throat. So there's a little bit of a back and forth there that always goes on, a little bit of a chess match. That's always fun, and I think that's why the Patriots, the one thing a lot of people always talked about, I feel like, with the Patriots that I always disagreed with was their second-level speed on defense. Linebacker, speed at linebacker, and the fact that they still employed Jawan Bentley's and Jelani Tavais. Bill Belichick, and I think they're going to continue with this regime. He looked at it and said, well, why don't I just play a 215-pound safety in Kyle Duggar or Jabril Peppers or now Marty Mapu in those positions where I might give up a little bit in terms of the run defense and the size, but they're better coverage players than most linebackers would be, even at 225 pounds. So it's always a fun way to see how different teams kind of piece it together.
Yeah. So these teams are going to, piece it together over the course of the next, 7-8 days. We have OTAs, and then mini camp, the mandatory mini camp, which everybody has to be at. By the way, there's a handful, 6-8 players that are not here for these OTAs this week. Do we read anything into that outside of Matt Judon? And I say that because Judon, I think, this is just my own personal opinion.
Yeah.
He's trying to work on some leverage for a new deal here, is he not?
Yeah, probably. So there was 13 guys missing from today's practice, and it's a little bit more than last week. Last week, it's a first-time new head coach. You're trying to make a good first impression, I'm sure, so a lot of guys were here. There were some guys that are here but weren't here. They weren't practicing because they have various injuries or rehabbing from things like a Cole Strange, for example, who we know is going to be out for a while. He's here at the facility. He's just not practicing. So those guys are sometimes accounted for in different ways, even though we put them on the absence list. I would think that some of those guys, you mentioned some of the veteran players, probably don't need to be here this time of year as much as some of the younger guys competing for roster spots, competing for jobs, roles, things like that. Matthew Judon and Devon Godshaw are the two guys that stand out to me that could be looking for contracts or things involving money.
But don't we expect those to happen, though?
Yeah, a little bit. Judon, I think, he's not going to play for $7.5 million in 2024, which is what he's currently owed for the season because they advanced his money last year to get him to incentivize to play last year.
But he was injured last year, and they gave him more money, and he played less time. So can there be a meeting of the minds here? I'm looking at it from the management point of view.
Yeah,
we paid you money up front last year. We didn't get a full season out of you.
Yeah, he's not going to fall for that. Like I hear what you're.
How old is he? 32.
I hear what you're saying, but I don't. No, those are the risks that you run from both angles of injury in this sport, right? Guys can get hurt. Yeah. I think Judon, the way to solve Judon's problem is probably to give him a quote unquote extension, where you're adding maybe a year onto the contract, but really what you're doing is you're giving him a raise this year, and then we'll basically be back at this again next year.
Figure it out next year again.
Yeah. So in order to
1 year stopgap
to make it happen, they might disguise it as an extension just from a bookkeeping standpoint, but it probably will really just be a raise for the 24 season. And God knows they have the cap space to just
Well, I was
pay
just going to say,
so,
it really shouldn't be an issue, should it?
No. But I think Godshaw is another one that low-key could be – yeah, you got to get in the camera.
I got to get in the camera. Sure. I know.
Well,
did anybody else hear that, or was that just me?
I have to get
just me.
I have to get my FaceTime in, Marie.
FaceTime. That's true.
I would say Godshaw is sneaky.
See, now my big head is in the way. What the hell? See, now I got to back out like that because if I sit forward like this, look at that. See, you see my nice haircut though.
We both got haircuts recently.
Yeah, we did.
Godshaw's. I don't think people thought Godshaw was one of these guys. Judon was easy to predict that he was going to be wanting more money. Godshaw's in the last year of his contract, and I think that he's looking for some security as well financially.
Yeah,
so.
I think so. I mean, that's and hard to say that he doesn't deserve it, to be honest with you. Especially if you're, you went to great extent to bring back the guys you wanted to bring back as you're trying to remake this team and launch it into a new era, hopefully of success. And some of that, and I know a lot of people find this ironic, is, well, when we need to retain some of, what was the Patriot way. And why are we doing that? Why are we not cleaning house? Well, because you can't literally start over from scratch. It's almost impossible that you do that, you're not going to win a thing. And I don't think anybody wants to drop to rock bottom. I think everybody feels like 4-13 needs to be the rock bottom, and let's build back up from this point forward. And by all measures, it looks like they're heading that direction, but before you joined me, one of the things that crossed my mind before we got started today was, I'm thinking, we got this team that's definitely younger, hopefully, a little more talented, which we all admit, this franchise needed, this organization needed more talent overall. Because if you look at them, from last year especially, they were fourth in a 4-team division in terms of the talent and the ability on the other rosters within the AFC East especially.
Yeah.
But while the talent is hopefully getting better, you've also got a young, inexperienced together coaching staff. And the coaching staff is also learning how to coach, much less coach the players. And I think that could be a significant I'm looking for the right I'm looking for the right thing to call it.
Learning curve?
Well, learning curve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a significant happenstance. It could be a significant occurrence during the season because you've got, I don't want to say you got the blind leading the blind here, but kind of feel like that, Evan. I'm sorry. I've seen it happen way too many times, and especially in the college ranks when college coaches are coming in, they've cleaned house and you got a team full of freshmen. Well, your team is going to get its butt beat. Especially today, when there's so much pressure to win today.
Yeah.
And so in the pros especially, if you've got a coaching staff that's come in, how long does it usually take teams to come in and really ingrain their will on the program? And it usually takes several years for something like this to catch on. I mean, I give you a good example. Green Bay. Yeah. After doing it, they were still, pretty dominant in there in the 90s for a while. Obviously, the Patriots lost to them in the Super Bowl, and I find it curious that, Ron Wolf's, and Elliot Wolf are kind of sharing some ideas. I saw that Mark Daniels from MassLive.com did a neat story on 9 keys to success, and it's basically, Elliot, using, Dad's secrets to success in Green Bay. That's going to become the new Patriot way. And so I'm looking at these 9 things. We can mention them again in a little bit for those that didn't see that. And I'm like, this is the Patriot way. What are you talking about? The New England did this too.
Yeah, there's only so many ways to do it.
Well, exactly. That's the point.
Yeah, we're going to draft and develop players. Well, everybody wants to draft and develop players.
Exactly. That's the point. These are the tenets, the basic tenets that you need in order to build a team and build it back to respectability. So I guess if I put my fan hat on here, I expect more out of this team this year. When, the media part of me and the analyst part of me says, I think this is a real learning curve again this year, and we may not see anything for another year or even 2 before we start to see, improvements.
Well, I think progress is not always linear, and I think that we have to keep that in mind with this team, is that it might not be, quote-unquote, progress in terms of wins and losses. Like, they might not win that many more games. Yeah. But I think what we can all do, and people like us will do, is try our best to watch the games and kind of base things a little bit more off of an eye test than an actual results of wins and losses. And I think that the hope is that best case scenario is lofty. Right, and the best case scenario is like what the Houston Texans did, right? They drop in C.J. Stroud, and then he's a star, and the whole thing just comes together. That's not likely to happen for most teams. The real best case scenario is that to me is like pie in the, that's like dreaming, right? That's pie in the sky. The real best case scenario to me is that in the second half of the season, they put Drake Maye in there, and there's an upward ascension going into next offseason where, they might be 6-11, they might be 5-12, but in the last month of the season, they looked like they were starting to make strides to hit the ground running in 25. Realistically speaking, in today's NFL, and I think that the Crafts are probably going to be a little bit more patient than the normal owner. I think a lot of owners are very impatient and impulsive. I don't know if they are like that just based off of their track record. But if you're not competing for playoffs spots in 2025, year 2 of your program, then you're on the hot seat. You might not lose your job right after the second year of the season, second year of your tenure. But if you have another bad year in year 3, then it's it's overhaul
Yeah.
time, right? So in my mind, you really have like a year and a half. You need to be down the stretch in year 2 of this entire thing. You need to be in the hunt. Like, I'm not saying you're a Super Bowl contender,
I agree.
but you need to be in. When they show that graphic on CBS NFL coverage, and it has the teams that are in the playoffs and then in the hunt. They always have that in the hunt section. If the Patriots are not in that section by next year, by 2025, then we got problems.
All right, so the stepping stones is what I was referring to, that Ron Wolf came up as part of his rebuilding the Packers organization, that his son Elliott is going to basically try to mold into the quote-unquote new Patriot way, for whatever that means. And I'm just borrowing that as a phrase. It doesn't have to be any big deal. But the things that are included in this, and if you didn't see, Mark Daniels, again, wrote it on MassLive.com this week. Number 1, identify what needs to be fixed. I think we understand that that's the case, right? You got to know what's wrong, or you just step in and fix things. Number 2, hire the best before anybody else does. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Patriots thought that they had the best before they even, decided to part ways with Bill. They thought that. Otherwise, Gerard Mayo would not be the coach right now.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yep.
See? Okay. Number 3, develop an obsession with winning today. That's the one, me. That's mine. I want to win today. I don't like rebuilding. Hate rebuilding. Rebuilding is...
You got to be patient.
Rebuilding...
This is going to take time.
Rebuilding is an excuse for weakness.
Oh, we're going there.
Yeah.
I think that patience is important, because really, and on Catch-22, we've kind of gone back and forth on this, as we tend to do. I look at this year as year 0, because I don't know how much Drake Maye is going to play, right? So until I can tell you that Drake Maye is going to play a large enough sample size of games for us to actually judge what he's going to be in this level, I can't sit here and say that this is truly year 1 of this whole thing, because to me, again, it's all about the quarterback. It's all about Maye. So if he only plays the last month of the season, if he doesn't play at all, then can we really sit here and say that this is we're 2 years into this already? No. So to me, this is year 0, where they're just starting to lay some of these foundational elements that you're talking about, and then next year is really the first year.
I just don't want to believe that, since COVID and before, since Tom Brady left here, I don't want to believe that these last few years have been for naught.
Well, they got you the 3rd overall pick. That's all it was. Last year got you, going through that experience.
So that tells me then
that
these last 4 years have been a huge waste of time.
No, I could have told you that. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
that disgusts me, which is why I want to win now.
Well, you're not going to win now.
I know. Listen. Honestly, I actually understand that, but it doesn't change the way I feel.
That's more than fair. I'm just trying to bring you back down to realistic earth.
Come on,
here.
Rook. Get with the program here, brother.
Yeah.
It ain't working. Stepping stone 4: play to your strengths.
I don't know what their strengths are, but we'll find out.
Well, I think we can assume that their strength is on the defensive side of the ball, can we not?
Yeah, and that worries me.
Why?
Worries me. I really genuinely feel that you can. I think the best way to put it is defense keeps you in the game, right? I feel like if you have a great defense, you can stay attached. You're not.
We saw that last year, but the offense was so flipping bad.
Right.
They didn't have a prayer, and the defense kept them in game. Defense kept them in games without Judon and without Gonzalez on the field.
Defense keeps you in games where you're within a score and things could happen one way or another.
And with the exception of a couple of games, that was the case pretty much.
If you don't have the offense, you're not getting over the hump.
Okay, which is why we know that's exactly right, which is why they needed to emphasize offense.
Right.
No question. Number 5, use the 4 C's to measure performance. Those 4 C's are expect certain devotion, expect certain dedication, expect certain work ethic, expect certain results. Certainty. Okay?
Okay.
That's fine. I got no problems with those tenets. Number 6, making it work. That's the one that's a little confusing because, well, of course you got to make it work, because if you don't work, you fail.
These are some pretty okay.
They're pretty basic, but
yeah.
But you almost have to verbalize them to realize that they're a part of it.
Yeah.
Right? Number 7, keeping it going. Well, yeah. Once you get it established,
Sustainability.
and the Patriots, inarguably, kept it going longer than any other franchise in National Football League history, when they kept it going as a contending team for 20 years.
No arguments here.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's just, hey, we know that keeping it going has to be, and they've certainly got a lot of experience doing that, even if it's a different crew and a different, mindset coming in. Number 8, handling the unexpected. Everybody's got to deal with adversity. Right?
Yeah.
You got to have talent. You got to have depth. I think we realize you got to have depth, and you can't have ancient depth. You got to have young depth, and the Patriots have been caught shorthanded, I think, with that over the last few years as well. And then stepping stone 9, staying on top. Well, that's easier said than done, obviously. But Patriots, again, did that better than anybody for 20 years. The Kansas City Chiefs are doing it now.
Yeah.
The Buffalo Bills in the division are doing it now.
Yeah.
So how do you stay on top? First, you got to get back there. Then, how do you sustain it? And that, to me, the key here is this is where you really have to understand your opponents, your divisional opponents that you face twice a year, because those are the ones that are going to really make you or break you when it comes to the postseason. How do you stay that half a step ahead of your divisional opponents? It's one thing to play the San Francisco 49ers, or another thing to play, the Kansas City Chiefs even, or whomever. But when you have to face the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Jets, a total of 6 times of those 3 teams, if you can't go 4-2 or 5-1 against those guys, you're not going anywhere.
Better be able to score.
Yeah,
Gets those 3
I think we know that now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't. Look, Ron Wolf has obviously learned more about team building than I'll ever forget. He's definitely got the resume and has, I think, passed some of it along to Elliott. I think that a lot has probably changed since Ron Wolf was truly sitting in the chair in the 90s, making these decisions in Green Bay, just about the modern athlete and team building and what that sort of thing. But I think in general, when it comes to these things, like I wish that some of these things were like a little bit more football specific. Like you could apply that to like any sport.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could give that to Joe Mazzulla in the Celtics, they would follow the same tenets.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So that's more philosophy of team building and of program building. I find it more interesting, I guess, how Elliott Wolf is going to steer right from Bill Belichick's lefts in terms of personnel. Like, is he going to pay a receiver next offseason, like $25 million, like they tried to do with Calvin Ridley? Like, is he going to, he drafted all offense. I don't think Bill would have done that. Drafting 7 of 8 draft picks being on the offensive side of the football. Is their offensive philosophy from a schematic standpoint, are they going to put Drake Maye in positions to succeed? Like these little things that I think they're talking about. And right now, as Elliott has said in his press conferences and things like that, they're in the honeymoon phase right now. Like they haven't played any games. They haven't really hit any adversity. Everybody's agreed for the most part.
They're in a learning stage. They're in the middle of a 15-round heavyweight bout. We're just tapping gloves, baby. That's all we're doing right now.
Yeah. So it's too early, I think, to know how exactly he's going to check all those boxes and how they're going to move forward from here. But I just keep coming back to the same thing, and this is just my personal belief. Like, people can disagree. But the way I look at it is that most football games nowadays come down to which passing offense throws the ball the best on a Sunday. Now, if you go up to Buffalo and it's 50 gale force wind, 50 mile per hour gale force winds,
and only throw it twice,
right? Like then sure, you could win a game playing that way,
right?
But I think every single time you watch, even like the peak playoff games, AFC, NFC Championship, Super Bowl, those games often come down to the end and which team can drop back past the best, like which quarterback's the best, which passing offense who has the most complete crunch time passing offense lineup, and that's why the Chiefs continue to win Super Bowls, is because the Niners get into these spots and they just have Jimmy G or Brock Purdy or whatever going up against Patrick Mahomes, and It's just not good enough.
Sure.
So until the Patriots get back to that point, and we saw some things out here today at OTAs that were encouraging, that to me is the ultimate goal.
Right.
Is how do you get that thing going again?
Want to describe what you saw then today?
Yeah, like last week I was pretty critical of not the players or the performance of the players, but the way that practice ran. I felt like there's a lot of standing around for some of the younger guys, especially. You look at a guy like Drake Maye. Last week I felt like he was watching Jacoby Brissett a lot and watching even Bailey Zappi a little bit, and it just felt today like there was a little bit more tempo to practice. There's a little more urgency to practice. Last week I talked a little bit about how they weren't splitting up into multiple fields and like utilizing both fields to run drills simultaneously at the same time to get everybody reps. Today they had Jacoby Brissett with most of the quote unquote ones on one side of the field. On the left practice field, there's two practice fields right next to each other out there. I know you know this. I'm trying to describe it for the people. And Jacoby Brissett was on the left practice field running 7-on-7, and Drake Maye was on the right side running 7-on-7, and they were doing it simultaneously. So everybody's getting reps, not just a quarterback. Like everybody's getting reps at receiver and tight end, those spots as well. So I liked that a lot more. Drake Maye, threw a ton more today than he did last week when we saw it, and I think that's positive that they kind of are upping the tempo. Maybe last week, maybe it wasn't that they didn't think of that. Like I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt that they recognize, how to improve practice and how to run a practice properly. And I'm not here to tell them how to run their practice, but I think that last week it was probably more just like a ramp up period, and they're starting to try to accelerate a little bit more now. And I thought Drake Maye threw the ball really well, and I thought one of the reasons why he did in 7-on-7 in particular, he didn't take a ton of 11-on-11 reps, but in 7-on-7 in particular is because he was getting into a rhythm with it. He's getting into, a little bit of a sweat, and you're starting to make throw after throw after throw. And then, you start to see things pop, him throw a really good deep ball to Tyquan Thornton, who we can talk about is, having one of those springs that were, in the best shape of his life, John. Like that's the time of year we're in right now. So Tyquan Thornton makes a nice play. Juju Smith-Schuster catches a nice ball in between a couple zone defenders, from Drake Maye. He's throwing little slants or under routes underneath the defense and putting the ball on guys, and you can start to see even his confidence kind of start to grow a little bit. So I was encouraged by what I saw today in general from everything. Obviously, like last week, don't want to overreact to an OTA practice where I was kind of a little bit underwhelmed. Don't want to overreact to an OTA practice where I thought it went better, but in general, I just liked the process a little bit better today.
I did like, as you suggested, I did like the underneath routes, getting the ball in the hands of receivers and letting them try to create with it.
Yeah.
That signals to me, part of, I think, the offensive philosophy that, Alex Van Pelt will probably likely go with, to be quite honest with you. Going to try to let these receivers make plays. I know Jalen Polk was one of those kind of guys, anyway, when he was in college. So that's encouraging.
Yeah, so he made a couple throws, one in 7-on-7 and one in 11-on-11s where it was pretty decent coverage, and he was able to put the ball out in front of the receiver and kind of almost throw him open from the coverage that was pretty tight. And those are always encouraging. I thought that his throws today showed some thoughtfulness. He made a throw to, mentioned it earlier, to Juju, where they're playing cover 2, so he's got like the outside corner sitting underneath it and then the safety over the top, and he gave a little pump fake into the sideline to draw the corner out of the passing lane and then threw it into the passing lane in kind of one fluid motion. Like those little things, like the pump fake, the manipulations, the understanding where the holes are in the zone and things like that, those are always the most encouraging. And at the end of practice in 11-on-11s, it looked like he beat a blitz with a little slant over the middle. Jacoby Brissett came over to him, dapped him up, said, good play. So those little things I think are encouraging the most because it shows that it's going up here.
Right.
We know
and that's the most.
We know he can
yeah.
throw the ball. That's not going to be the concern.
That's the most important part. All right, but we're going to get to the phones. Got a couple of emails we want to share as well. Russell Baxter will join us in hour number 2, but I want to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Okay. One bold prediction. All right. Drake Maye will start when?
I wish the schedule was made this a little bit easier to predict. Like I wish there was a nice cushiony time to throw him in there, and there really isn't because of all the different things. But I would say that he'll be in there by, let's say, week 5 or 6. I'm gonna go week 6 just to be safe. I I just think that, like I just said about the mental aspect of it, as long as he's picking it up, the offense, I mean, and the speed of the game and the rhythm and all that kind of stuff, as long as he's picking it up, I don't think that there's going to be anything better for him than to play. Like, if he's swimming in it and he's drowning, in the deep end of the pool, then I'm not suggesting to just throw him out there just to feed him to the wolves.
Sure.
But if he has like a grasp of things, I don't see what benefit to just sitting and watching has, whereas playing, I think you learn the most. I think you learn more from playing, but you can also get broken from playing, so that's the fine line that you have to walk.
You can get broken from playing if you're not properly supported. That's what happened to Mac Jones.
Yeah.
Okay? So, my bold prediction, week 1.
It's possible. I haven't ruled it out either. I think a lot of people have, and I'm not on that side of the street because
I'm not either.
I've watched this guy, obviously at North Carolina, but his pro day, and then out here at a couple of these OTA practices, I've watched this guy with my own eyes do some things that these other quarterbacks that they have on the roster just simply can't do.
Right.
And at some point, I think that there's an element of the other 52 guys on the roster are going to say, well, Drake gives us the best chance to win.
That's what I'm saying.
So
you got this guy because he has got the best chance to help you win.
Right.
So if he's got that talent, as long as he's not swimming in it, as you suggested, and I think that's a perfect analogy. Sometimes you just don't know how younger players react to that kind of adversity when things are new. But all things being equal, everything that we've read, heard, seen, watched with Drake over the last month since we've known he was going to be a New England Patriot officially tells me that he can handle this. If he can handle his 3 big brothers, that kind of thing, right? I think he can handle this, and I fully expect him to, be able to tread water and then be able to start stroking, to use that, analogy after he gets thrown into the deep end of the pool and go. And week 1 is it if he's healthy and ready to go. Now, I would also tell you that if he's not completely healthy, or maybe he gets a ding or whatever in training camp or, during one of the games or whatever, then, yeah, I think they will err on the side of caution because they do have a wonderful, a marvelous, a fantastic backup plan in that particular instance. That's why they brought Jacoby here. And I know he's kind of getting tired of being thought of as a mentor anyway because, frankly, he's a competitor. And I like that. So the more competitive we see the situation, the cream should rise, right? It should.
Yeah.
We should see that.
I think
that's where I think we are.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think that there's some element, not that they owe Jacoby Brissett anything, but I think there are some elements of he was brought here for a plan, and I get that plans change, but I do think that the plan was Jacoby Brissett. We're likely going to take Drake Maye at 3 overall. We kind of know that, unless the Commanders stun us and take Drake Maye at 2. Mm-hmm. This is probably the way that we're going to go, and this is sort of the plan of how this is all going to go. And there are some truths, I guess, to sticking to what you had planned, but I've said it since the beginning. I've said it since even before they drafted him, probably, and we kind of knew that it was going to probably be Drake. Drake Maye is going to do some things in training camp and in preseason games that are going to make you go, wow. And there's going to be mistakes. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be perfect,
of course.
But I'm just saying in a vacuum, he's going to do some things that are very, very impressive. Like, we're watching him right now run what they call basic, which is just their basic installation of plays. We're not in any sort of creativity. We're not at game planning. We're not double reverses. We're nothing. We're basic play concepts that
we're throwing slants and in routes today, basically. That's what they were doing today.
Like, I mean this sincerely. High school teams in the country are running the plays the Patriots are running at these practices, right? Yeah. So we're not doing anything creative, and he's already doing a couple of these little things. We haven't even gotten to the off-platform stuff. We haven't even gotten to him, running and making plays with his legs.
Right.
We haven't even gotten to that aspect of it yet. It's just him standing in the pocket and throwing the football. That's all we're seeing right now.
Right.
And it's already checking some boxes. There's a couple of other guys that I thought stood out as well that we can get to too, that were interesting. I think, and the biggest one, I think the most encouraging one is probably Javon Baker, just making a couple plays in traffic today, going up along the sideline, high pointing a ball along the sideline, made a really nice catch, and made another one coming across the field and in between a couple defenders, another really nice catch. That was encouraging. Those are the types of plays that you hear about with Javon Baker. Like, he's a tough, he's a highlight reel guy. Like, he's one of those guys that makes these like jaw-dropping type of plays. The consistency is the biggest question with him. Like, can he catch the easy ones? The hard ones are the ones that he's good at. And then also Tyquan Thornton, who just every spring it's touch football, right? Mm-hmm. So there's no contact. There's no fear of contact. There's no jamming him at the line of scrimmage this time of year.
Can he be on the Olympic flag football team?
He is one of those guys that would be fantastic at flag football. There's no doubt about it. And he looks the part running around. He's fast. He's got great long speed. You can definitely see it. He made a couple catches today, and I am not taking the bait. Like, we'll see what happens in 3 months. Like, if he's doing this in training camp, and that's a different story. But until he starts doing it in live football action with full pads and contact and all that good stuff, it's hard to take the bait. I get that, but just reporting on what we saw out there today, the bottom line is that Tyquan Thornton is probably the best receiver on the field for the Patriots today, and take that for what it's worth.
I don't know how I can take that, but we'll just kind of leave that there. All right, 855-PATS-500. Hello, Eldred. How are you, sir?
Hey there, Mr. Legend. How you doing?
Everything's good today. How are you?
Sitting back during the day off.
Good.
Listen to Evan man crushing over Maye, and I'm like, okay.
Always.
Just like you said about Taekwon, they ain't got the pass on here, bro. He knew this guy for 3 years here.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. And like I said, if he comes out where Evan is, I will personally give you an apology.
Ooh, a personal apology.
I appreciate that, Eldred.
But if he come back the way I'm everybody's predicting, he'll give me a personal apology.
We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I'll probably blame it on everybody else.
Of course.
Blame it on everybody else. I know you probably would, but I'm like you, Mr. Legend. I want them to start off winning, but that during schedule, man. So I'm just like, well, my boys, no matter what, I go down fighting or I go down crying, one of the two. But I'm not expecting much this year because, like I said, everybody's new. And you don't know how to do game time situations. I know Bill was good at that. You don't know what the new guy, Gerard played for him or under him, whatever. You just got to see, can they make those in-game readjustments and stuff. That's what I'm looking for.
Right.
And Baker and Tyquan, I hope they come out. I hope they be the starters who starting out. Get rid of Juju, and I think Bourne is still hurt. So give Douglas a shot and go from the young guys. Pope too. Just deal with them. Take your lumps with them from the beginning.
Right.
That's what I hope they do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, as far as getting started on the schedule, I mean, yeah, you got you have to start on the road. And then you get your first home game against a Seattle team that's kind of in transformation, like the Patriots are, with the new coaching staff and things going through that. And then you get your first, real challenge, and it's in the division and the Jets. So right off the bat, I mean, there's a chance to, dig yourself a real nice hole, or there's a chance to, sit on top of the hill for a little while, depending on how you fare in those first 3 weeks. It's way too early, I think, to even play the win-lose game, just because we don't even know what kind of team this is going to be, and we may not even know that until the season gets here. We may not even know that until we get to week 8, for that matter, simply because
exactly
that's part of the thing. So that's why I'm with you. Yeah, I want to win like everybody else. You want to win, and you expect to win, but I think you do have to take that with a dose of reality, and the reality is that it's going to be a significant challenge, and I think that's probably going to be one of the most difficult things to come to grips with, and that's where you're going to find a lot of people flying off the bandwagon and things like that early if the Patriots go, say, 1-2 or even 0-3 in the first 3 weeks of the regular season. Doesn't necessarily mean that things are a flop. What it means is that it's a slower start than you would like to have had,
Right.
but it is a
And the way they
long season. And really, and this is where I'll agree with Evan. This is a journey. Okay, this has to be a journey overall because you're trying to get back to where you once were, and we know what it took to get to where you once were. It took a long time to get to where you once were, and it was a gradual progression. It didn't happen overnight. Gradual progression to see that kind of dominance. They caught lightning in a bottle back in 2001, and then they were able to matriculate that and grow that over the next, 2-3 years. Where 2002 was down again, and then 03 and 04 they're right back again in the Super Bowl, and they're winning the thing. It's going to take you a little while to get to that point. So, I would say if you go 0-3. Well, I'll be greatly disappointed. The season is not
You're setting
over.
yourself up for failure.
Yeah, you're setting yourself
You
for
really are.
immediate failure and disappointment. Because if you go 0-3, you might start 1-10. Everybody's going, oh my God, we're going to get the first pick of the draft and blah blah. I'm like, yeah, but then if you win your last, 6 in a row, and you finish 7-10, you got a completely different outlook. In fact, there'd be a lot of people that would be pissed off at that because they're like, oh, they had the first draft pick and then they won 6 in a row. What the hell are they thinking? Like we have any control over that?
Yeah, I think that it would
Exactly.
be
They are professional.
to me. It would be a different feel. Like I when they won a couple of the games last year, I defended them for winning because obviously that I'm not ever going to be in the business of tanking for draft picks. I don't feel like it's what you should be about, right? And they win that game on Christmas Eve in Denver, or the Thursday night game in Pittsburgh, and let's face it, that was the difference between them picking number 2 overall and number 3 overall, was winning those 2 games, and they were meaningless, like to most people. But if they win 6 in a row is probably unrealistic. But if they win 4 out of 6 to end the year and they're competitive in the other 2, right? They're 4-2 to end and it's all Drake Maye. Like not Jacoby Brissett, no offense to Jacoby, but it's Drake Maye in there and they're 4-2 in the last 6 and they're competitive in the other 2 games. Maybe they split the games against Buffalo and they actually win a game against Buffalo. You look at those things and you're going to say, we're on an upward trajectory. And I don't think the draft pick will necessarily get people as jazzed up as it did last year. Well, last year there was a ton of people that were furious at them winning those games down the stretch that they did. I think it would be a different feel. Yeah.
We all were furious at that, I think. But that's guys are going to compete. They're not going to just that's why we were going through the whole tanking issue last season. I'm like, that's just so stupid. Nobody tanks.
Yeah.
There isn't a professional athlete. There isn't
some people tank, but not the Patriots.
Well, the only real example I can honestly tell you, and I've been covering professional and collegiate sports now for almost 50 years, okay? The only example of tanking where they were purposely trying to lose were the Houston Rockets. Houston Rockets, pre-Ralph Sampson, okay? And the reason I know that is because Elvin Hayes told me so.
Well,
okay?
The Colts, once they lost Peyton Manning and they were going to tank for luck, they came pretty close to we're going to purposely lose. They lost their quarterback. Like, if Peyton Manning's healthy, then they're not thinking in those terms. I get that. But that team, was it like Curtis Painter or something like that, was started a bunch of games for them. Like,
Curtis Painter.
They were not trying to win games. They weren't.
Well, they were trying to win games with Curtis Painter. Now, you put 2 and 2 together, and you tell me what you think will happen.
Yeah, it was Curtis Painter, right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
That's a blast from the past.
Yeah, I think it was Curtis Painter.
He's almost AFC finalist banner worthy, isn't he?
God.
Yeah, something like that. But is there a left tackle that they could either trade for or try to get? I don't know about Caden Wallace. I don't know if he was the right tackle. They could try to put him on left. To me, that's always a failure unless you find somebody that really can do it or really want to do it. But, I just hate they missed out on the left tackle during the draft.
Yeah, I think that
would have been a...
Yeah, I hear you. I think the biggest thing to me, and I almost feel this way across the board, is that this year is such a year about youth and development that, could they go out there and sign, I'll just give you a random name. Could they go out there and sign David Bakhtiari to an incentive-laden 1-year deal where he's going to start at left tackle for the Patriots this year? They absolutely could. But is that really what's in the best interest of the long term of the Patriots, where let's say Caden Wallace starts to come on a little bit in training camp and you give him the opportunity
You want to
play.
develop him. You want to develop him. The best way to develop him is to play him, which is what we talked about with Drake Maye earlier today.
Yeah.
Best way to develop the guy is to play the guy.
I feel the same way about not all the receivers that get floated. Like, obviously, if you have an opportunity to get Brandon Ayuk, you do it, right? Like, I'm not sitting here telling you to not do that type of move. But some of these other receivers that you hear about, why don't we sign that guy? Why don't we trade for that guy? Well, now Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, Pop Douglas, all these younger guys that you've brought in the last couple of years through the draft, they all get pushed down the depth chart, right? And now all of a sudden they don't get those opportunities. So, like, is it that much of an upgrade? Again, I'll just give you a random name. Is it that much of an upgrade to make a move for, like, Cortland Sutton in Denver?
No.
And then risk pushing all these guys, down the depth chart, and you're not ever going to see Javon Baker because he doesn't have an opportunity to get on the field. If you can get a Brandon Ayuk, if you can get a T. Higgins, that's a different tier. Like, I'm not talking about those guys. But in terms of a lot of these positions and a lot of these players, I feel like they're going to want to play the kids. We talk about corner, like Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore would be a good pickup for them defensively. I think that would, in a lot of ways, complete their defense in some respects. But then you're not giving opportunities to Alex Austin, Marcellus Dial, some of these younger players. And in a year where you're really not a contender, like, the better thing for the long-term health of the team might be to give some of these younger players opportunities to play. Not everywhere necessarily, but Bolden too. Throw him into that category as well with those other corners.
I liked him last year till he got hurt. Yeah, I liked him last year till he got hurt. But, fellas, y'all have a good one. Nice talking to you, Mr. Legend. Always.
Eldred, it's always good.
Thanks for the call, Eldred.
Always good to talk to you, my friend. Thank you. All right. From Eldred in North Carolina to Patty in Agawam. Patty! Wait, hold on. There he is. Got him. Hey, Patty.
What's going on, gentlemen?
How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah, so what's your concern right now? What's your big concern today? Forget tomorrow. Forget a month from now. Forget when training camp starts. Forget September the 8th. What's your big concern today?
Well, I hate to pair it like a lot of other people, but left tackle, you know?
Yeah. I figured that was going to be popular today. Yep.
Aside from Calvin Anderson that's on the roster that's really went out there and played that position,
Yep.
But I kind of wanted to also pair what Evan said, too, about letting the young guys play. After, like you said, the lightning in the bottle year in 01, in 02 we took two guys. We took David Givens and Deion Branch, who you look across the league at that time, specifically our biggest rival, were they as good as Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne? No, not at all. But you know what? We had the quarterback, and we made it work. So, to me, that's the big thing. And I hope, John, people don't jump off the bandwagon if this team starts off slow this year, because I think most intelligent fans, most fans that have been around for a while are going to understand that it's going to take a little while. And, but the big concern is left tackle and possibly, I know this is, protracting out a little further into the future, but how is Gerard Mayo going to manage those in-game situations, and how will his team respond after halftime?
Yeah, one of the things we talked about earlier, Patty, was you got a brand new coaching staff, you got a brand new head coach who's never been a head coach before in his life, so he has to learn these things. He even admitted as much today in his interview session before the OTA practice took place. He said, "Look, I'm going to be learning, and that's part of the game here. We know that there's a learning curve here. He's going to make some mistakes, and I think we have to allow those to happen. So I'm not going to get bent out of shape over him making a call in particular that turns out to be the wrong one unless he makes it repeatedly. Then you might start to question, well, what you're thinking here? Whereas before with Bill, we got obstinance, basically. But, now I feel like, Gerard would at least answer it and provide some reasoning for it. And obviously then he would have to sort of self-deprecate and just say, well, I guess I screwed that up. But that's part of the process here. So that's going to be a work in progress. We already know he is not going to make the correct call every time out. We would like to see that happen. No coach in the world does that.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about, because it is such a developmental year, and, to all your points, I'm not necessarily going to judge him on. I probably will, because that's what we're paid to do. But I'm not really going to judge him on every little decision, they decided to punt here instead of this or whatever, and then call him a terrible coach.
Yeah.
I think the biggest trials and tribulations for Gerard Mayo are going to be, when do you put Drake Maye in, and making the right call there, and sticking to your guns. To your point, I know you want to win, right?
Of course.
If they come out 0-3, but Drake's not ready, or they really feel like the best part to put Drake in is week 9, are they willing to just sit there and lose and lose and lose and lose and keep the Ferrari in the garage?
That is going to be really frustrating if that happens.
Yeah, but it might be what's best for Drake May's development. It might be what's best for Drake, and that's what's most important.
How do we know that? I got to play devil's advocate here. How will we know that if this team starts out unfathomably 0-9, and yet as you put, it's a great analogy, you've got the Ferrari in the garage, and you're waiting to get it out and run it, and you're not being forthcoming, because clearly you at this stage you can't play Bill Belichick and keep your cards close to the vest. You're going to have to say, well, the reason that he's still in the garage is because he's not ready. Well, why is he not ready? And I think you're going to have to explain that, because if you start out like that and Jacoby, God love him, Brissett or Joe Milton or anybody else who's out there at the particular stage of the game and they're not getting it done, why isn't the guy who you invested the time and the money in, why isn't he out there learning on the job?
Mm-hmm.
On-the-job training is still, by far and away, as far as I'm concerned, the best way to learn at this game, if that is what you're left with. And that's really all this team is left with. They don't have seasoned veterans. They don't have Tom Brady. They don't have what they've had for much of the last 20 years.
I just think the biggest thing is going to be mental. It's the simple things of, is he seeing the pre-snap keys to pressure, right? Is he seeing a blitz coming? Is he seeing post-snap safety rotations? Is the game too fast for him?
Sure.
If it's too fast and he's making mistakes left and right, then it's not doing
anybody
anything.
But then isn't that an indictment, though, on the coaching staff? If he's not up to snuff and up to par and ready to see this by week 9 and this team is 0-9, isn't that on the coaching staff? Isn't that on Elliott Wolf?
A little bit. I guess we'll see what it looks like and when we get out there. But I also just think that we have to remember, and I'm going to keep beating this drum, is because I know that people are going to get frustrated if this type of stuff happens. But it's a 21-year-old kid. I think he might be 22 now, but a 21-year-old kid for all intents and purposes. Yeah. He's played 2 years of college football. He played 2 years of high school football because his senior year got wiped out by COVID. So he really hasn't played a ton of football.
Nope, he hasn't.
He hasn't.
We're expecting a lot of him.
And we're expecting a lot out of him. So you have to be, I would say, more patient. When I say patient, I think it's patient in terms of when he's going to play. Once he plays, we judge him. He's out there, he's
Fair
playing.
game to judge.
Whether it's him,
but this
or
is going to be the first test of Gerard Mayo and real test of Gerard Mayo and this coaching staff.
How he manages this whole thing.
Yes.
And I think that he's what's the word? He's embraced it, because I think he's said a couple times, my career is tied to the success or failure of Drake Maye.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
If Drake is a star, then Gerard Mayo is going to be the coach here for the next decade. If Drake Maye is a bust,
Can I interject something real quick?
Sure, please do.
And just to kind of go off of John's point on that, you guys remember the Brady 6 documentary with when Spurgeon Wynn was talking about how he got drafted with Cleveland, how they had Tim Couch and I think Helly Colcom was their backup.
Yeah,
they might have had 3 quarterbacks ahead of him, and they basically told him, don't expect to see the field this year, but. Well, 2 or all 3 guys got hurt. Point is, he ended up starting. Yeah. And since he wasn't mentally prepared for it like that, I think that put, and I think even he admitted that put he wasn't in the right headspace for when he did.
I agree.
So I'm hoping treat him with kid gloves, but have him have the expectation that, like, hey, man,
he needs,
guys get hurt.
He needs to expect to play.
Yeah, I don't think
he
that they're
must
telling
expect
him
to
that.
play. I don't think they're going to tell him, well, we're going to bring you along slowly. I really believe that, what, they've said publicly, at least thus far, is, hey, this is a competition. Well, damn straight it is.
Yeah.
And the best man is going to play, period, whoever that may be.
Yeah,
it's about to get loud for me, guys, so I'll let you go.
Okay.
Thanks,
Great
Patty.
stuff as always.
Thank you, Patty. Appreciate you.
I'll just continue to say the same thing. I just think that there's two different schools, right? Like there's going to be what's best for the 2024 Patriots, and then there's going to be what's best for Drake Maye. And your hope is that those things collide and it's the same thing, right? That what's best for the team now is what's best for his future. But if it's not, and you need to do what's best for his future. So that's going to be to me, the toughest thing with Gerard, is that not only is he going to answer every single question under the sun, and from now until the start of the season, where when is Drake going to play? Is Drake going to play? Who's your quarterback? Who's your quarterback? Who's your quarterback? Then you get into a couple games, and to your point, they're 0-2, 0-3. When are you going to put Drake in? When's the switch to Drake? This is going to go on and on and on, and how he manages that and how he handles that is going to be telling.
I would think that the pressure to put Drake in, if they don't start him to start the year, the pressure to put him in is going to ratchet up exponentially if this team has no success on the field.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be like, well, what the hell is it going to hurt? I mean, Patriots aren't winning anyway. Put the guy in there.
Yeah.
That's going to be the first criticism, the first absolute, whack across the mouth criticism that this team is likely to face.
Yeah, and it's tough because even when we go out there in practice today, like you can see the potential that he has, even on 7-on-7 or whatever.
He looks it. He just looks it.
And you try not to get even ahead of yourself in this respect also, when he's like throwing fades, 50 yards down the field to Tyquan Thornton and it's right in the basket and you're like, well, I don't know if the quarterbacks, last year, I don't know if the other quarterbacks on the roster right now, like make that throw, as well as he did. And he wasn't mistake free. He threw a ball into the sideline that Marty Mapu got two hands on and probably could have been a pick. And he underthrew a back shoulder, kind of slot seam fade type of throw again to I think Jaheim Bell as well. But not that the numbers really mean anything, but when a quarterback goes through an entire period of in the practice and the ball hits the ground twice,
that's saying something.
It stands out to you,
yeah, sure,
right? And you're like, oh wow, I mean, the ball was coming out on time, in rhythm,
on target,
and down the field.
Yeah.
Like we're not talking about him just taking the check down all the time either.
Right, exactly. Hey, Patriots Playbook, Patriots.com radio, brought to you in part by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. Before we wrap up our conversation here, Evan, I'd be remiss. You started to jump back into the OTAs a little bit, and there was a story put out by Tom Pelissero of the NFL over the fact that the whole OTA, organized team activity process, might be changing.
Yeah.
That the Players Association, the NFLPA, is working to finalize a proposal that might just overhaul the entire offseason starting as soon as this time next year. It would, and for those that are unaware of this story, but it kind of came out yesterday, I believe, is when I first originally saw the story. Voluntary on-field work, so OTAs, would go away in the spring in favor of a longer training camp ramp up, almost like the old days, really.
Yes.
And players would report in mid-June to early July. Again, almost like the old days. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can tell you just from having conversations with people that we work with, the moans and groans when we saw this is definitely out there because I no one feels bad for us. I get that. But I think for a lot of the for people, not only in our content team, but also on the football side of things, that 5 weeks in between minicamp, which is this year's June 10th through the 12th, through Brady night on the 12th, and then we come back to training camp. I don't think it's public yet. I probably shouldn't say. But
It's going to be the end of July.
End of July.
Yeah.
That 5 weeks is our summer. That's our time to go on vacation.
Right.
That's our time to go to the beach. That's our time to go to
It's your downtime. Everybody has to have downtime.
Right. it's the best time to have the downtime because it's smack dab in the middle of the summer.
Yeah.
And you also have, July 4th and all these other things. So the thought for a lot of people, I think, in football, whether it's media or people that actually work on, in football, is, well, that would stink, right? To lose all that, they're going to make poor Marine work on July 4th. That makes no sense. Like, I don't understand. So, these aspects of it are factors, I think, in all of this. But I think the other factor, I shouldn't say bigger, but the other factor on the other side of the fence is that no other sport has a spring off-season program like football. When you are an NBA, hockey, baseball is spring training, you report when you report and you don't go home, right? Like, it's not like we're going to we're going to invite you all to come in and then you're going to leave again and then you're going to come back.
That's true. The NFL is the only sport that does it this way.
Right. It's the only sport that does it this way. So I think in some elements, players probably look at it and say, well, I got friends in the NBA. They go off for their off season in May, and they don't have to come back in until October.
Yeah.
And it's see you later, and there's summer league for the younger guys, but like, I'm a veteran. I've been in the league for 10 years. Right. I don't need to come in April and play,
So couldn't the NFL then take its downtime in May after the draft is over with?
That's what I think the thought process would be May and June would be that 5 to 6 week true downtime.
So you just move your off time up.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be some pushback more so than people realize for this, and I'm not sure it's going to get passed.
Will the pushback come from within the NFLPA, or will it come from the NFL?
I think it will come from the NFLPA. I think the NFL would be okay with this because they're going to disguise it as a win for the NFLPA to get the 18th game by them. Right, so they're going to say...
I knew you were going that way. I knew you were heading there. This is all leading to Week 18.
Yeah.
Game 18.
Yeah. We'll give you this.
Week 20.
Yeah, you take your off season. The players, you end in January. Most teams, we don't have to see you to June. It's fine, but we're going to play 18
weeks.
games.
Yeah.
And I think that element of it is where the NFL is coming from. But from a PA standpoint, I think they're going to be veteran players that are going to say two things. One, well, it's written in my contract that I get off-season workout bonuses. So if you take off-season workouts away, how am I going to get
my bonuses?
My bonuses.
Yeah.
The second thing is that, I know a lot of people probably don't care, but these players and these personnel people and these coaches have families. They have kids. And a great part of the fact that this off-season break falls in the summertime when it does is that the kids are off school. So a lot of, it's family time, right? So if you have your off-season and really the meat of the off-season comes in May, dad's going to be home by himself a lot, right? Just sitting there.
Sure.
So I think there's a lot of elements of that as well, too, that this makes a lot of sense for probably some players, like younger players that maybe don't have families yet or don't have these responsibilities yet. The older players, I wonder if they truly are going to like it.
Well, I can tell you that Pelissero's story says that the union has been, or they're in the fact-finding mission right now. They're looking for feedback from the players themselves, and they're saying, at least according to Pelissero, that a majority of the players support the move. Under the new leadership, the NFLPA has been consulting medical and performance experts as well to find out sort of a solution potentially that could potentially reduce injuries, maximizing recovery time, which is how I think they would probably try to frame this. Classroom work, the study work, the playbook work, all that kind of stuff would still be permitted in the spring, but no practice, no on-field stuff at all until camp time. So that's really the major emphasis here. You'd still get your playbook and still, do your schoolwork. And if you want to do an individual workout, or if the quarterback wants to take his wide receivers out and go to Southern Cal and do that or whatever, you can still do that.
Yeah.
You can still do that, but it's not going to be in an official team capacity at all until you get to training camp or to camp opening in June, which is, kind of like the other sports do it.
Yeah, I think the last thing on it, I thought it was interesting. Gerard Mayo was asked about it this morning, and he mentioned that he didn't think players were going to come in shape. because
They used to not come into shape.
the April through June, the off-season program.
Before the NFL became a year-round sport and guys had other jobs in the off-season before the NFL became a full-time job, they all came into camp out of shape. Camp was for getting into shape.
Right, and I think that what Gerard kind of was insinuating that they like is that I mentioned there was 13 guys that were absent. That means that there were 77 guys that weren't absent, right? So those 77 guys are in the program. They're working out every single day here. It's not like, the football stuff is probably an advantage, but then once you get to training camp, everybody's already ready to go. Right. And I think that that's an element that they're going to have to figure out is, checking in on guys in the off season. You don't want guys to just kind of disappear. Bad stuff happens, frankly, when that happens. And B, how do you make sure that when they get in here in early July that they're ready to go? Right. I think is the other aspect of it as well. But we'll see. Like we've been saying off the air, if that's how it goes, that's how it goes, and everybody will adjust, and everybody's life will move on. This is a problem that I think people internally care a little bit more.
I will be mildly surprised, I think, if the NFLPA passes that or if they approve it. I'll just be a little surprised. That's all. I mean, I guess I think you hit on a good point. There are probably a lot of the younger pros who have, acquaintances, friends, contemporaries, in the NBA and the NHL, that, they're like, well, we do it this way. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'd like to have an earlier off season because it seems like our off season is way short. And so, because we're already supposed to be back for OTAs in mid-May and, all this, pre-draft activity and yada, yada. And it's like, man, I need some time away from the game. Yeah. And maybe, as you get older, you realize that, you get into a routine, you're more of a creature of habit than anything else. So I think it'll be interesting to see how this thing, plays out. But I think I'll still be surprised if it passes.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Can I give you one more OTA thing before I go?
Yes, you may.
So the one guy, Gerard Mayo, was asked this morning about who has kind of caught his eye. No names. Wasn't multiple choice, right? It was just give me a name of a guy that has caught your eye that's come on strong in the spring, and he said Keon White was the guy that has impressed him the most. Someone that he said is taking on a little bit more of a leadership role in his own way. He's not a very talkative guy. He's not going to be the rah-rah leader type of guy, but, setting a good example, came in great shape, he said, looks ready to go. So it's encouraging.
Love his motor. Love his energy.
Yeah.
Love his athleticism. I think this guy can be a star if he wants to be.
Yeah. I agree.
He's right
there.
Got
to find a position for him.
You got to find the right fit. But I thought that a year ago. I remember we even talked about that, and I picked him as a sleeper in terms of being one of the best rookie defenders in the league because I just thought his talent was. I mean, I'm like, wow, how did this guy get by so picks before the Patriots were able to pick him up? But that's the kind of player, though, that you need to recognize in the whole scouting routine here and go out and recognize, and that's why you probably. I mean, I think it's great that they've allowed Elliott Wolf to come in now and take this over, and he's got his dad's experience at Green Bay to hang on, and it's not like he's completely a stranger around here, and so he's learning what we've done in the past. Now he's trying to put his stamp on things. Let's give him a chance. Let's see how this thing works. And so far, I kind of like the recognition of some of the talent.
Yeah, I think Keon White. To answer your question of how did he kind of slip through the cracks a little bit to the second round, I was talking to Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl about some of the guys they drafted this year, and one of the guys that he brought up, or we were talking about, I should say, is Jaheim Bell. And he fell all the way to the seventh round. Yeah. And if you watch him, I'm sure you did at Florida State, he's got talent. He's a talented guy. I think the biggest thing that Jim mentioned was that sometimes teams get scared off by tweener labels and not knowing exactly what position a guy is going to play at the next level, and it almost becomes difficult. It becomes a challenge to have to figure it out, and it's just easier to just not. Yeah. And I think with
ignore it. It's easier just to set it aside.
Yeah.
And go to what you do know as opposed to what you don't know.
Right. So
with
Keon White, is he an end? Hand in the dirt. Yeah. Is he a stand-up linebacker? Is he a 4-3 end? Is he a 3-4 outside linebacker? Is he where is he going?
Where is he? Yeah, what
is he going to play up? Is he going to play down? All those types of things. And, the Patriots have been one of those teams that have been willing to just go for the talent and figure it out. A lot of other teams just say, we're going to take this other guy because we know exactly where we're going to play him and how he's going to play and where he's going to fit into the puzzle, and it's just easier.
Yeah, all right. thanks for stopping by.
Anytime.
Appreciate
Anytime.
you, buddy. All right. When's the next Catch 22?
Catch 22 in the morning, 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Beautiful.
We'll talk about OTAs, and I promise I won't talk too much Celtics, but, I can't help it.
No, I don't think. Actually, I'm surprised that we haven't really brought it up yet at all. Because it's going to be another 8 days until they even play a stinking game, the way that the NBA has the finals set up. But, hey, the Western Conference Series is still going on thanks to Minnesota winning last night. So
I've been watching.
Hey, play on, brother. Keep going. Let them go.
I've been watching the Western Conference Finals, and Jess, my fiance, she's so funny. She's like, "You scouting the opponent?"
Yes,
making fun of me.
Yes,
and
yes.
I'm like, "Yeah,
no, that's
totally."
what we're all doing. If you're a
Yeah.
Celtic fan,
Yeah.
you're scouting the opponent. That's last night's game, and of course, again, this is Wednesday that we're doing this show live. So the Tuesday night game. That's the first Western Conference game I have watched all season.
Yeah, I've watched a little bit of it, and I've watched all of the Western Conference Finals, and look, I think the Celtics are what they have is very I'm sure the Patriots envy it a little bit to have such an embarrassment and riches, and I really do feel like this team is a little bit different. Celtics teams in the past have a series like against Indiana where the team is really playing. Indiana played their butts off in that series. They were playing fast. They were coming at the Celtics. In years past, that series goes 6 or 7 games because the Celtics let they stop pulling the rope. They don't put the foot on the gas all the way, and they let up a little bit. Just like how they've gotten into longer series against Miami, even though they're way more talented than the Heat. They get into these long series, and then
every championship team has to have a few breaks along the way. Yes, did they not have to face the guy for the first 3 rounds of the Eastern Conference Playoffs? Yeah, probably. Okay, I'll give you that. Every team, if you're going to win a title, needs a break. Hell, didn't we learn that with this franchise?
Not a single person is going to care in 10 years when we're telling them about how
nobody
they won the
will remember. Nobody remember that Jimmy Butler didn't play with the Miami Heat. No one's going to remember any of that stuff. The only thing they remember is who won.
Yeah, go look at the Western Conference in the 1980s with the Lakers. They played
I know because I worked for the San Antonio Spurs during that time, and the Lakers were the ones that were kicking our ass.
They played a bunch of cupcakes most of the time, and
not the Spurs. We were losing every year in the Western Conference Finals. That's what that was. Hey, do your homework, will you?
I just said.
Do your homework.
Playing a bunch of cupcakes over there in the Western Conference Finals.
I resemble that remark.
In the Eastern Conference, you had the Celtics, you had the Pistons, you had the Sixers, you had a lot of really good teams.
You did, yeah.
The Bulls with Jordan beginning.
Yeah. Totally.
All right.
Totally.
Anyways.
We had the Iceman and the A-Train.
How'd that go?
Okay. It went well. They didn't win a championship. They didn't win until it was Tim Duncan and the Admiral. That was when they finally broke through back in '99. Okay, we've digressed, but that's okay. Hey, are you in desperate need of a great night's sleep? Evan is. Spring into better rest with whole sleep solutions from Bob's Discount Furniture. Choose from tons of Bobopedic mattresses, feature-packed adjustable bases, and plenty of stylish bedroom sets, or snag them all for your ultimate sleep setup. So stop by and sleep better with Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots.
A real woman could stop you from drinking.
You have to be a real big woman.
It's time to go around the NFL with football guru Russell Baxter.
From now on, your name is Flounder.
On Patriots Playbook.
Flounder.
Did you ever find the drop? You never found the thank you, sir, may I have another? It's got to be in the old one? Okay.
We used to have 3 of those machines. We only have 1 now.
Oh, are you going to get any of them back for once the studio's redone here? Or?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then maybe we'll be able to.
I have a doc sheet, Word doc over here with. I went through the 2 replay machines and typed out all the drops. I do have that plan in play.
Okay, that's fine. Never mind. That's okay because Flounder's here. Russell Baxter, how are you, sir?
In the mood for a cupcake.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
When your caller, I couldn't tell if your caller was more of a ring ding or a butterscotch crimpet.
We're always thinking that,
Yes.
Ring ding, ding dongs, right?
Ding dong.
Ding
yodel.
dongs. Yeah, yodels. Yeah, right.
Yep.
That's that's a weakness.
Butterscotch crimpet, of course, is
part of the Tasty Cake family.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's right. Yeah, Tasty Cakes. Yeah, totally, absolutely. Drake's Cakes around here, things like that. I got it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, first of all, how the heck are you? How's your post draft time treating you? And we're not yet there, but we will be in a matter of about 3 weeks to the actual deadest of the dead periods of the National Football League calendar once teams get through their mandatory mini camps.
Well, I've been trying to put my thoughts together, and this is the time of year I try to do some historic work and pieces and stuff like that, and especially anniversary type pieces. I was in the middle of working on something right now about, and obviously the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be a big topic this year. Can they do what no team has done during the Super Bowl era? And that's win 3 straight.
3 in a row. Yep.
And of course, the first 2 teams that had that opportunity were the Green Bay Packers, who did win 3 NFL titles in a row. They won in '65 and then the first 2 Super Bowls.
Right.
They also won titles in 29 to 31. They were awarded titles that was before the postseason began.
Because you were sitting on the 50-yard line for that one.
I think I was 40 at that time. And those were again, no playoffs at the time. But it's always been remarkable to me, baseball, hockey, basketball. You have these long runs by teams, 5 championships. Didn't the Celtics won 8 in a row, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Okay. 1957. Actually, they won. Yeah, they won 8 in a row, and then they won, I think, 11 of 12, like 1957 through like 69.
Right, and then I know the hockey teams. There's been hockey teams I think that won 4 or 5 in a row. I know the Islanders won 4 in a row at one time.
Yeah.
Didn't Edmonton? I'm out of my league here.
In the Gretzky era? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, the Yankees, I think, won 5 World Series in a row at one time.
Mm-hmm.
But football, professional football, the dynasty ends at 3. The two mentions I made of the Packers are the only time in the 104-year history of the NFL that a team has won 3 in a row. No team's ever won 4 in a row. It just doesn't. And it's even harder now with free agency as rosters change and all that. So I was going back and thinking about that, but it'll be now. This is going to be a thud for whatever Miami Dolphin fans are listening to you on a Patriots day, but I'm sure there are AFC East fans.
Yep.
But it will be 50 years since the Dolphins dynasty came to an end.
Wow.
They had a chance to repeat in 1974.
That was 50
and
years.
in one of the most famous playoff games, and many people still say maybe the greatest playoff game ever, the legendary Sea of Hands play, when Oakland beat Miami 28-26. Clarence Davis caught a touchdown pass. Vern Den-Herder did what he could to get Kenny Stabler down. Phenomenal game. Cliff Branch. Just back and forth, and that was the end of the Dolphins dynasty. And sadly, if you're a Dolphins fan, after they won those first 2 Super Bowls in '72 and '73, they haven't won a championship.
Yeah,
it's quite a drought for them and so on. But what was funny is the end of the Dolphin dynasty in '74 was the beginning of the Steelers dynasty. In 1974, and they would go on to win back-to-back twice and win 4 titles in 6 years. So that's the kind of stuff that interests me. As it beats the hell out of just making stuff up.
Sure. Well, listen, that's why we love to get your perspective here, because of the historical sense of it all. And I know you know this, but I think yesterday was 100, so that makes today 99 days away from kickoff, the regular season.
I have 2 countdowns going on right now. 64 days till the Hall of Fame game.
Okay.
So you got your Randall McDaniel, and you got your Hacksaw Jack Reynolds, and you got your, and then you got 99, and you got Ian Hampton and Warren Sapp and Jason Taylor, and of course the recently retired Aaron Donald.
Sure, and Patriots second-year pro Keon White. He wears 99. So there you go.
There you go.
See?
Correlation.
Yeah.
So you've got double countdowns going on. Canton's going to be here before you know it. And again, it's a couple of months away. but it's amazing. You know, I just put my Christmas decorations Saturday, June 1st. For God's sake. So,
I know, right?
it does, but it flies, John.
Hey,
and when the season gets here, it's like it goes from 33 1/3 feet to 78.
We figured out a way to leave our tree, or at least one of the trees, because there's several in the house now. We'll leave one of the trees up, and we just move from holiday to holiday. Right now, it's decorated for Memorial Day to the 4th of July. So it's got red, white, and blue, and stars and stripes on it.
I like that.
You like that idea? Yeah.
Very innovative.
Yeah, that's Miss Robbins. That's her contribution, and I like it actually. It's kind of neat to go in the dining room and there's still a Christmas tree up, but it's all decorated for Memorial Day and 4th of July. I think it's kind of cool.
I like it. I mean,
we had Easter eggs hanging at Easter. We'll have we'll dress it up for the fall and for Halloween, and then put turkey stuff on it for Thanksgiving, and then hey, we change with the seasons, brother.
I'm imagining some Christmas ball and some giblets hanging on the tree.
Hey, you just gave me some ideas. I know, right? I know. It's hey, why not? That way, exactly. This way, I don't have to take the tree down.
Yes, I like.
Just stays up,
and you can have your salad with your meal.
Yes, totally. So, what are your thoughts then? As we just got to kind of looking ahead a little bit, because I know you saw the story that actually came out yesterday from Tom Pelissero about the potential for the NFLPA changing up the off season. What are your thoughts on the way the system has been, over the last 8 to 10 years or so, and do you think it might benefit the sport to change back really to kind of the way it was when players used to have to use training camp to get into shape? It sounds to me like there's a little of that going on here.
Well, something has to change. And, that's why I've been personally a big proponent, and you and I have talked about this over 20 years. I've always been one of those guys who likes the idea of an 18-game schedule.
Yeah.
Because I think it would first off expand rosters. This idea of playing 4 games, and now it was Sean McVay didn't play his starters at all. Okay, now we're seeing starters play in the 3rd preseason game and playing a lot after not playing in 2. It's been this kind of disjointed system. Now we're down to 3 preseason games. Eventually, we are going to be down. Gone are the days that teams, at least in my mind, seem to hit the ground running. Okay? And I think that's why the football early in the season a lot of times is just so disjointed. And you kind of get a false sense of who's good and who's not. Even though, 2 weeks into a season, you shouldn't be determining that at all. So anything I think that can make this a better product. And again, I think the 18 games schedule is inevitable.
Yeah, I do too.
To be honest with you.
But let's add a codicil in there. 18 games is likely to happen, but there's got to be a second off week in there, don't you think?
Well, there could be. It's funny. The USFL used to play 18 games.
Mm-hmm. I know. I broadcast those games.
Right, and I believe the CFL still plays 18 games.
I believe they do.
And I believe in 1985, Reggie White, the late great, played 13 games in the USFL or something like that, and then played 13 or 14 in the NFL the same year.
I think you're correct on that. Yeah, that's a long lost fact to history, but you're right. That's a good.
And I'm sure he wasn't the only one who went right from the the $3 league, as it's called, after they won the lawsuit.
Yeah.
Into it, I think. I look at other sports in this regard, and to me, it's why pitching in baseball is now so disjointed, where you don't have guys go for complete games like you used to years and years and years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just what you're not used to doing. And football players get ready in a different way now. Now a lot of them are getting ready on their own, and we have these OTAs and different things. So I think they have to look at different ways to preparing for the season, because here's what, and I don't have numbers to substantially back this up in terms of before and after. See a lot of hamstring injuries, see more torn Achilles in recent years, and you see these not in the preseason. You see these in OTAs and training camps and personal workouts and stuff like that. So there's got to be a way, and that's part of the safety aspect of it. And I hear people grumble like, well, 18 games, Roger Goodell doesn't care about their safety. I disagree with that, because I think if you're playing in a game that means something, you're certainly better be paying attention, opposed to a preseason game
which means zero. Yeah,
going through the motions.
Yeah, it's meaningful football. It's purposeful football, and I do believe that if the NFLPA, if it's really true that the majority of players would like to have this new schedule that could kick in as soon as next year, which basically eliminates OTAs, and you start basically with training camp really in June as opposed to July, the downside of that, or the upside of that, is that you're going to get 18 meaningful games. You play a couple of exhibitions, you're liable to have a scrimmage or two, a joint scrimmage or two, which the Patriots, in fact, we didn't even get a chance to talk about this yet. Patriots announced they're going to do a joint practice with the Philadelphia Eagles before they face the Eagles in the preseason here in Foxborough in August. So you're going to see more of those kind of opportunities, I think, come forward, so players can kind of get back into shape. Now, the issue to me here is, what is this going to do with some of the guys who are under contract who get their workout bonuses, but they've had their workouts eliminated because there's no opportunity to have those OTAs that they're able to kind of cash in on. There will take some restructuring here. There will definitely be some give and take involved.
Well, listen, how many contracts in the NFL are restructured? Let's be honest.
Every one of them?
For different reasons and so on.
Yeah,
I laugh. You got to look at the guaranteed money and different things like that.
Yeah.
And all that. So I'm surprised they haven't almost eliminated Pro Bowl incentives in these contracts and so on, considering the way the rules changed, that the Super Bowl teams can't play in the Pro Bowl. I know you can get named, but there's so much mess. It's not even a Pro Bowl game anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what do you get? What do you get? A Manning Bowl incentive or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm surprised that hasn't changed. But I think anything to, I remember the days in the 70s, and I know, but what exactly you were talking about? Players who played, players who more times than not had to get other jobs before free agency kicked in, and they made better money, and the TV money was better, and players came to camp, and basically if they were overweight, they in the 2 or 3 weeks they lost it. Of course, back then too, and shudder the thought now, 6 preseason games, 14 regular season games, and even though it eventually went away in a rainstorm in 1976 at Soldier Field, if you were the defending Super Bowl champion, I know you remember this.
Oh yeah,
the 7th preseason game.
Yeah, the College All-Stars
against the College All-Stars. So imagine. I'm just right off the top of my head, because it was the last year this would have happened. Well, it would have been the last year it would have happened, because Pittsburgh didn't get to the Super Bowl in '76.
Right.
So in 1975, the Steelers were defending Super Bowl champions. They played 7 preseason games. They played 14 regular season games, and they played 3 postseason.
Isn't that nuts? That's crazy.
That's 24 games.
Yeah, that's crazy. And we're balking over playing 18. I mean, I realize that players are bigger, stronger, faster, but the evolutionary process is certainly taken over here. But 24 flipping games, and nobody thought 2 bleeps about it.
If I'm wrong, okay, and I'm sure. I mean, obviously, I haven't heard everybody chime in on this. I hear more complaints about this from those of us who don't play than the players who play.
Yeah, players want to play. They want to play. They absolutely want to play. They'd rather play meaningful football than go through the motions football. They all would.
Well, but here's the other thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. 18 games means 18 meaningful games, opposed to getting paid for something that doesn't mean anything. So there's got to be a big redo here. And I will say this. I think Roger Goodell it's the time to do this in the next couple of years, because one thing that has definitely happened ever since the lockout, which is now 13 years ago, unbelievable, 2011. The NFLPA and the NFL seem to be on the same page about a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There seems to be harmony, and the time is right.
Was that a?
I've heard people listen. Once they went to 17, inevitably they were going to get. 18.
Oh, of course. It only makes sense. We don't operate on odd numbers. We operate on even numbers. We all do.
Well, and the number, and if think about it, the number you really operate on, John, is 20.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
6 and 14, 4 and 16, 3 and 17.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
2 and 18.
2 and 18.
Yep.
Okay. Not any more than that. Okay. And because the postseason can be longer now. Now, more times than not, we have seen the last couple of years teams needing 4 games to win the Super Bowl, opposed to just the 3. I mean, last year Kansas City had to go the long way to do it. The Rams did in 21. Tampa Bay was a wild card in 2020, and a lot of other examples as well. So I think if you're playing and you're in a groove and all that, that's now the bye week thing, the off week thing. I'll be curious to see. But 1993, the NFL had 2 bye weeks for every team, and it was still a 16-game schedule. And they probably need to do a better job the way they structured it out.
Yep.
Because teams would play a couple weeks and then be off, and then they'd play 4 or 5 weeks, and they'd be off again, and there was no real rhythm to it, and so on. And of course, more than anything else, expand the roster.
Yeah. Well, that's to me. I mean, that's why the NFLPA should favor this, because it's going to be more jobs. So I mean, that's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you do that?
And I'm trying to think just randomly. Yeah, I think where could the NFL get more players?
Let's see. Maybe this spring league, the UFL, is that what it's called now? So.
Yeah, well, that's what it's called for now.
Yeah, for now.
Last year,
of course,
2 different things.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
They did the right thing by merging the 2 leagues, and I've watched a little bit of it, and it's interesting, and there are actually some good players there. So, but that's you've got your farm team now. You've got your farm system, which is something that and if people will turn out and continue to watch it, and the cities that have teams will continue to support them. Now you've got your AAA, if you will, and okay. There's definitely room for expanded rosters if you've got ready-made athletes to go to expand these rosters out.
Right, and that's why again it's inevitable. I don't know when. Obviously, and I don't know off the top of my head TV contracts how they all stand right now and so on. That might tie into when they decide to make the decision. And so on. Here's what we know. The networks will pay through the nose.
Oh, sure they will. Of course they will. The networks will do anything the NFL asks them to do. Why? Because they don't want to lose football. They don't want to lose football like CBS lost football when Fox came into play, and that was almost a death knell for the CBS television network. And they were only out of football for what, I think a year, but they had to claw back in to get it, and it's and things have been hunky dory ever since, just because.
And the NFL knows now.
Yeah.
And here's what they know. Okay.
Yep.
For all the whining and complaining about the playoff game on Peacock last year. People went for it.
Yeah, of course they did. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm really glad you brought that up because, we've got, Netflix is going to carry a couple of games on Christmas Day. We're going to have Christmas Day football in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
Wednesday. We're going to have Wednesday football. What are your thoughts? Have we really advanced enough, or are we regressing in our mindset here with this thought process? Not just about the Wednesday football game, which to football fans, oh my gosh, it's nirvana, but the fact that that's 2 more, good games, 2 more games that will have, literally the football world's attention, but you're going to have Netflix to get it.
Well, and people will. Let's put it this way: people will find a way, regardless. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
That we know. People will find a way regardless. And this is going to sound like a weird thing to say, but here's what I'm sure the NFL also took into consideration. During COVID, we had some weird football games on some odd days.
We did. Yeah, that's true.
And I want to say
How soon we forget, yeah.
I want to say there was a Wednesday game.
Was there?
I think there was. I might be wrong. I think there was a Tuesday game.
Okay, the Tuesday game I remember. Tuesday,
Right.
yes. I just can't remember there was a Wednesday game or not.
Yeah, I'm going to, after I get off the phone with you and so on, I'll tell you this whether I'm right or wrong. It's something, I don't know if it was Baltimore, Pittsburgh, or something like that, or Pittsburgh. No, that was moved to Monday. But you remember all the moving around they did during COVID. And you also know that we have also seen other games move because of weather. We have seen games move because of...
Marine says you're right, by the way. There was a Wednesday game.
Who was it, by the way?
When was it, Matt? Go ahead. Put yourself on. You found it?
It was during the COVID season.
Yeah.
It's Steelers hosted the Baltimore Ravens, and it was the second Wednesday game in 70 seasons.
In 70 years. So there you go.
There you go. Lack of a social life pays off for me again.
The first one was in 2012.
The first one was in 2012. Wow. How about that?
Well, remember the year the Metrodome collapsed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember Minnesota and Philadelphia, I think, had to move to a Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tuesday night or something because of
Yeah.
weather and all that.
Yeah, the snow caved the roof in. Yeah.
Don't play these games and people
Yeah.
will watch them. And it's funny because I hear people making such a big deal out of them playing on Christmas. The playing on Christmas part is nothing.
Yeah.
It's playing on the Wednesday that is more the headline.
Yeah. It is. It is. And I thought that too. But the fact that it's going to be playing on a Wednesday and you've got to have a subscription to Netflix in order to be able to do it. And so I know the average NFL or the run-of-the-mill or maybe the typical NFL fan, I don't want to say run-of-the-mill, typical NFL fan is like going, oh, my God, another game that's not on quote-unquote free TV.
Right. Well, but how smart were they? They took 4 teams from the AFC that were all in the playoffs.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
the defending Super Bowl champion.
To make it must-see TV. I know that's because you got teams that are expected to be good, and they're going to, and it's a holiday time, and hey, you're going to have an international audience on a global holiday riveted to the NFL again. And this is the marketing beauty of the National Football League because they just know how to do it. It might piss us off in the short term, but in the long haul, it's kind of like, oh, that's brilliant.
But think about the venues where, okay, I mean, well, obviously, CBS, NBC, ESPN/ABC, that's really what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, right.
Netflix.
Of course. Yeah.
And even though they don't show games, and I used to kid in a different vein about this, the influence of Nickelodeon on football now with what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have the alternate broadcast for a younger audience during the Super Bowl.
Plus the show they have, which has been nominated for and I know a number of the people who work on that show. People I was Sean Robbins, who I worked with at CBS, Craig Ellenport, who we go back years and years ago. All part. I think Nate Burleson is part of that as well.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's all over the place. But John, you know as well as anyone, we're now watching football in our house, football on our computers, football on our phone. I guess if you have an iWatch, you can watch it on there.
You
too,
could.
like Dick Tracy.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, you and I, there is nothing going on, and we are having a full-fledged conversation about the National Football League on May 29th.
Yeah. There you go. Well, the NFL loves us then, since we're doing that today.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They love it. All right. Russell, I hope that you enjoy the heck out of your time away. But we'll find a way where we can connect at some point in time this summer again, and hopefully we'll keep this thing rolling and see if we can't figure out a way to fool them again for another season here in the playbook.
Well, I was thinking about this last night, and I'll leave you with this bizarre thought. I realized because I was at a lacrosse game last night.
Okay.
And listening to the national anthem, that Francis Scott Key was really the father of modern technology. Because you will remember in the national anthem, he says gallantly streaming.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah, and little did we know. Yeah,
So he was the
exactly.
forerunner.
Little did he know that, hey, our whole world is going to be streaming.
Yes, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very, very astute observation by you.
Well, I think part of it is astute. The other part of it is the never mind. So,
Russell, I love you, brother. Thank you. Thank you for the time as always, my man.
all right, talk to you soon.
You got it. See ya. At Bax Football Guru on X, BAX Football Guru, all one word. Russell Baxter. Bleacher Report, all over the place. And again, our history goes way back to our time working at ESPN back in the 1990s. Yeah, 1990s. A while back. Yeah, I know. Don't look at me like that. Don't judge me. I know. It was a long time ago. Let me wrap up here with a couple of emails because we had some guys give us their thoughts here. Sean in Vancouver says, John, my big concern, the threat to democracy. Oh, wait, this is a Patriots show. Okay, I like that. My biggest concern is the question mark at left tackle. I don't have expectations for the 2024 season. I'm all about the future of the team. If Drake Maye's blind side is not protected, will he be able to develop? Yeah, we touched on that with Evan earlier in the program, but yeah, Sean, it's a great point. If he's getting heat from the blind side, he's going to develop that happy foot, which is kind of what happened to Mac Jones. That was part of the issue that Mac Jones had, but that's part of it. So, yeah, you've got to surround him with the right people, and, yes, left tackle is one of those. And I can't believe that if left tackle turns into an issue, that this franchise will have gone 2 draft cycles without drafting a left tackle. I mean, that just, to me, just actually blows me away. I hope that that's still addressed at some point for this year. I hope. Alex from Carolina Beach. Currently, my big concern is, can Mayo handle the pressure? The coach following a Hall of Fame coach is always under the most pressure. My beloved soccer team in England, Man U, has been under the same pressure since their coach, Sir Alex Ferguson, left. Do we think Mayo or any new and young coach can handle this level of pressure that will come with the position? It's a great question, Alex, and we obviously won't completely know the answer to this until that pressure actually begins. Right now, this is all fun and games and being nicey nice and laughy and jokey and just hey, I'm learning on the job, and that's what this is right now, and I'm not trying to make fun of Gerard. He knows, and that's what I loved about when he spoke to the media earlier today. He's got the right idea. He knows that, hey, I'm on a learning curve here, and I'm only going to be as good as Drake Maye is going to take me. If Drake has success, I'll be here for a while. If Drake doesn't have success, I'm out. Next. And that's kind of what will happen. So he understands that. Can he handle the pressure? Look, if you can handle playing middle linebacker and calling the signals on the defensive side of the ball at a high level like Gerard Mayo did, yes, you can handle the pressure. But it's a different pressure when you're having to make the calls from the sideline. Now, how hands-on will he be really is the question that we need to be asking here. Will he allow his coordinators, his coaches to make these decisions, or will he circumvent all of that? Will he overrule like Bill Belichick did? We're going to find that out. That's the first test here. Right now he's given the offense the reins. He's given he's given them, the chance to, go and do. Because we know that he's more of a defensive-minded guy, having been a middle linebacker, and a Pro Bowl middle linebacker in the National Football League. Yeah, kind of like Bill Belichick. His expertise is going to be on that side of the ball, and I think we expect that. But, yeah, I think he can handle the pressure that will come with the position. Can he handle it successfully is the primary question that we should be asking. Brolio from Mexico City, big fan of Catch 22 and Patriots Playbook. Thank you, Brolio. I'm a little concerned from the Patriots' offensive scheme. Main focus is the running game like Cleveland and the 49ers. When it matters and they are behind late in games, his passing offense isn't effective. They always have so many problems to come back. The record of Kyle Shanahan coming from behind in the fourth quarter is awful. You need to develop a passing game that not always depends on your running game and have control of the game like the old offensive Patriot system. You bring up some good points. That's true. The issue here is personnel. Did the Patriots go out and get the right personnel to be able to create the passing game that you're looking for? And again, that's still a work in progress. Did they get some pieces? Yes. I do think they got some pieces in the draft. I do. The Polk pick, the tight end from Florida, I thought those were two of the best picks that the Patriots made from last month's draft. I agree with that part of it. But again, it's a development issue. The offensive line's got to be there, and there's a health issue. Let's face it. And so, one of the things that I've stressed through a number of years here, and that we should continue to stress here, is that this is a game of attrition. Whether it's 16, 17, or even soon to be 18 regular season games, that we play in the NFL, he who has the most toys at the end wins. That's how this plays out. You've got to have depth, and you got to have quality depth. You're going to have better depth if we get to 18 because your rosters are going to increase. That can't not happen. It has to happen. But right now, when you have a 53-man roster, this is where you've really got to do your homework. I think they've taken steps to that, but I don't think they're there yet. So you're going to have a little luck in terms of your health on your side as you're developing to sort of speed up the process. And part of that is, the guys that you're selecting, and they have to come through. They have to develop. They have to play. And some of the guys clearly last year, especially veteran guys that they picked up, didn't come through. Juju Smith-Schuster comes to mind. That can't happen again. You got to have the right guys. I think, frankly, and I'll borrow a sort of a cliche here, but I think, going on the cheap a year ago bit them in the butt is what happened. And they can't really do that if they hope to have success sooner rather than later. All right, my thanks to Russell Baxter. My thanks to Evan Lazar. My thanks to you for listening to this one. Maureen, thank you. Hoorah. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light is the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. All right, our next program for the Patriots Playbook is we're in our monthly off-season mode. Will be June 26th. Wednesday, June 26th. So mark that on your calendars if you care to do that. That's when we'll have our next updated version of Patriots Playbook, and that will be when the off-season really gets started. We'll be in our quiet time right then. So what I think June 26th will be fun to do. I think we might make that prediction Wednesday. Remember, we used to do that back in the old day of the weekly shows that we would do, and of course those will start up again during the regular season.
Call me now for your free reading.
Yes, exactly. We might have to do a little prediction Wednesday coming up at the end and take a look ahead at the 2024 regular season. Something to look forward to. Thanks, gang. We're out.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.